also going to move off from the PowerPoint and start looking at some real-life examples using Salesforce, a company most people will have heard of, who I think is one of the best, certainly for the online and inbound side of lead generation. So we'll be looking at those examples shortly. So to give you a brief introduction, as I said, my name is Phil Richardson, I'm the MD of Shortlist Marketing. My background was very much in marketing for IT businesses. The last part of my career there, I was the marketing director for an ERP and CRM organisation. And Shortlist Marketing has been around for nearly 3 years now. And it was born out of frustrations that I'd had in my work trying to find an outbound agency that really understood kind of lead generation, how B2B lead generation had changed, and could deliver high quality sales leads. So that's what we do, predominantly for the IT and technology sector. And we cover telemarketing, we cover email marketing and data, so the traditional, but we're also doing a lot in the online side of marketing, social media side of marketing, all around generating high quality business leads for our clients. So that's the kind of the pitch over for us. This is hopefully more of an educational and seminar or webinar to give you tips and hints. So if we start with what is B2B lead generation, it's something that has been around for many years. And for me, it covers 3 areas. It covers the engagement of your target market. It covers the management of that engagement. So once people have engaged with you initially, how do we then manage them, and then how do we progress them until they're actually a sales ready opportunity. So they're the 3 areas that we're going to be covering. Most of today will be based around the engagement and the management side, and about how we actually get going and how we start generating some real quality sales leads. So really, what is a lead, I guess, is a good place to start. And I remember when I worked as a marketing director, there was always an issue. I had responsibility for lead generation. And there was always an issue between sales and marketing. The sales team would always say they didn't win business because marketing were passing them poor quality leads. And marketing were saying, well, they were great quality leads, but the sales guys were all out playing golf all the time, and they didn't actually work to close the leads. So we spent a lot of time working together as 2 departments, both sales and marketing, to really go through what is a lead for the different people, and then what are the criteria for success in terms of generating that. We also looked at who is involved in the lead generation process. So is it with the marketing team? Are there telemarketing involved? Are they sat with marketing, or are they sat with sales? Is it that all engagement is done with marketing and then it gets passed straight over to a field-based salesperson to follow it up? And then what happens to the lead? Once you've had the engagement, whereabouts does it sit in the CRM system, if you've got a CRM system, or how else are you managing it? What other systems have you got internally? And these are all questions that need to be agreed by everybody involved in the process before any lead generation starts. One of the things I will say that I'll talk about throughout this webinar, I'll talk about a lead generation campaign. Now for me, that makes it sound wrong. That makes it sound like it's a very short term and you do lots of small campaigns. But for me, lead generation is an ongoing process. It's about how you're going to generate leads, not only now when you might be busy, but also going forward into the future, into the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 5 years' time. If you do the groundwork now, it means you'll always have a good supply of good quality sales leads. And talking of good quality leads, that qualification criteria is also very key. And this is something that people used to spend most of their time on. What does a lead, how do we qualify that lead? And for me, there's 3 areas that need to be considered. One is the basic company information, and so this will just be the company name, the job title, the name, the phone number, etc. And so that might be information that you get if somebody downloads a white paper, or they go onto your website and they register to receive newsletters, etc. There's also the more complex company information. So it might be, if we're talking about software, what software are they using currently? How long have they had that? What problems have they got with it? When will they be looking to change it? Again, that one, it might not necessarily be that if you've got all of that information that there is a lead there. They might not be sales ready, but we've got lots of very good quality information on that prospect and on that opportunity. And then the third step that we look at when we're dealing with lead generation for our clients is a very traditional kind of sales model called BANT, and we just use it to make sure we're qualifying those leads, the last part of it. And as most people know, it's just the budget. It's all very well they've got problems, they are looking around, but if they've not actually got any money, is it ready for a salesperson to get involved at the moment? Likewise, it might be that we're speaking to an influencer and not the decision maker. Again, is that still going to be sat in marketing, or is it going to be passed over to sales? Exactly the same with the need, exactly what is the need, and then the time scales. It might be that the project won't commence for 6 months, so again, if you know that, whose responsibility is it to chase it up? Is it passed over to the sales guy who's out on the road, so might not be able to make those calls, or is it back with your telemarketing or your marketing team? So these are all questions to be decided before any lead generation campaign gets underway. Okay. So how has lead generation changed? A slide that gives a huge amount of information. In many ways it hasn't changed, and in some ways it has. I started in the lead generation on the B2B side probably in the mid to late 90s. And for them, we were using telemarketing, we were using direct mail, we were doing a lot of advertising, PR, we were going to trade shows. We also wrote our first piece of content then, which was all around how to select and implement a new ERP system. But in those days, we were mailing that out, or we were sending a direct mail shot and getting people to fax their responses back. But it still had exactly the same emphasis. It was still around engagement, it was still around management, and it was still around progression of that lead. And as I say, in that, in some crucial ways, lead generation has changed massively. So it's not a case of you've got 6 or 7 different ways of engaging with a prospect. You've now got the whole of the online side, whether that's your website, whether it's through forums, whether it's through social media, whether it's through webinars. So there's a massive amount of different ways of engaging with a prospect. And that in itself is great, but it's also pulled about a number of challenges that we've got. One of them is, as marketeers or as lead generation professionals, your knowledge needs to be greater across all of those engagement methods. The other side of it is your prospects, the people that you're marketing to, they're getting, I say bombarded, but they're getting visibility of hundreds of different marketing messages every day. So how do you ensure that your message is actually getting through, and how do you ensure that you're one of the companies that gets involved once your prospects are out there and they are looking to suppliers? Okay. Has anybody got any questions up until that point, or is everybody okay with where we are? Okay, excellent. Okay, so what we'll move on to now is actually how we go about that lead generation process and actually generating success. The first thing I want to talk about is one of the things that I think is most crucial, no matter what form of lead generation or what form of marketing that you're doing, it's knowing your market. And I'm not at this point talking about data, though if you're using direct marketing, obviously good quality data is absolutely key. But this is a step before that. It's actually understanding your market, it's understanding who they are, it's understanding where you fit within the market, and it's understanding your successes and your failures. A great example, one of our clients that came to us 18 months, 2 years ago with a lead generation project. So they said, yep, we need to generate more sales leads. So we went down and sat in front of them, and we were there with the sales director and a couple of members of the sales team. And they were talking about they need more leads to get the customers. And we started chatting, and they were having a conversion rate of about 1 in 18. So every 18 sales appointments they were going on, they were getting 1 customer. So for them, what they needed was a lot more sales leads so that they could grow the business. They came on board and we said, fine, yeah, we can do a lead generation campaign. And it was when we sat down with them and started talking to them about why you're only converting 1 in 18 sales meetings. And they had a very clear idea of their identity. They were an IT support organisation, and they wanted to be seen as the Marks and Spencers of the IT support industry. So they didn't want to be kind of bleeding edge in terms of technology, but they did want to be into the utilising new technology for businesses. They were expensive, but it was all about their relationship and their customer service, and that's what they were selling on. So the first thing that we did, before we even looked at any lead generation campaign, we went out to speak to all of their customers. We spoke to everybody that they'd had a sales appointment with where they didn't win, and we also spoke to the market in general. It wasn't a big project, but it took a few days to go through that process. And what we found across the board was that, yes, absolutely, everybody recognised that this company were the M&S of the IT support industry. So the marketing that they were doing, the awareness building, was working. The problem is most of their market weren't buying on the criteria that our client was selling on. It was a distressed purchase, cost was a lot more essential to them. But throughout that process where we were talking to their market, we identified 3 different markets where it was absolutely key and where they'd had good success in, and that was the financial services, that was some of the professional services, and it was the banking and the insurance industry. So the first thing we did, instead of going out to the whole database, we slashed their target market by about 80% and did very targeted lead generation. They then went down to, instead of having 1 in 18, they had about 1 in 3 to win 4 converted into sales. It also meant that because there were other segments that they could go after, they changed their marketing slightly, so then they could put a slightly different message out to the different segments where cost was a lot more crucial in the decision making. So that's what I mean by knowing your market. Understand where you fit, understand what your market buys on before you begin any marketing or any lead generation campaign. And once you've segmented that, you'll find, once you've segmented your database or your market, you'll find that all of your lead generation and all of your marketing produces much better results. The last thing I want to talk about around kind of understanding your market is I recommend all of our clients do it, and it's one of the first things we do, is actually a unified keyword strategy. And everybody will have heard of keywords from search engine optimization back in the late 90s or 2000, whenever it started. And it was all about getting those keywords onto your website. But for me, it's a lot broader than that. It's a lot more wide. It's about the words that your target market use to describe your products and services. So it's not what you think as an organisation, it's what your target market is using. And what they're talking about. So looking on things like Twitter, looking on LinkedIn, looking on social media, talking to people, when the sales guys are out there talking to your target market. Because once we've got those keywords, and it might be as few as half a dozen or 6, it might be as many as kind of 15, that's what you use for the basics of all of your marketing. So if that's on an email, it might be the subject line on your emails. It might be the topic for blog posts. It could be what's talked about on your tweets and within your Twitter, and exactly the same on LinkedIn. There'll also be the terms that your telemarketing people might use, or your salespeople when they're engaging, because those keywords are what your target market is using when they're searching in Google and when they're looking for your products and services. And as an organisation, we made a mistake from this a few years ago, because we were all lead generation. Coming out of the States, it was all talking about demand generation. So we thought, oh right, okay, we'll start utilising demand generation in our own marketing. So when we were sending out emails, when we were doing telemarketing, everything was about demand generation. And what we found is that our enquiries dropped by about 70%, because although this was a term that had come over from the States, and it was quite big in the States, and we thought it was going to be big in the UK, actually none of our target market was using it. So that's what I mean about it's not what we think, it's about what your target market thinks. There are tools available, things like Google AdWords. You can use the keyword tools within AdWords. I was going to show you that this afternoon. Unfortunately, there seems to be a problem with Google AdWords at the moment because it wasn't working. But you can put in all of your keywords, and Google, free of charge, can tell you how many people search for this within the UK on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, how much competition there is from your competitors trying to also get themselves in front of people searching for those terms. So if you're not using Google AdWords, you don't need to go through and actually start paying any money. Once you set it up, you can go and put all your keywords into there, and it can give you some very good feedback into how often those terms are searched within the UK. So, any questions so far on kind of knowing your market and the unified keyword strategy? Okay. So for me, they're the basics. That's the foundation you do before you even start going on doing any of the lead generation activities, which is what I'm going to start talking about now. So I've talked from the beginning about, to me, lead generation covers three areas. It's all about engagement, it's all about management, and it's all about progression. For the purpose of this, we are talking mainly about the engagement, some of it is the management. And in terms of the engagement, I've divided it into three different areas: online, and then content stroke inbound, and traditional. Online and content kind of cover a lot of the same areas, which I'll be demonstrating later. But there seems to be a big discussion within the marketing arena at the moment, and it's one that kind of frustrates me at the moment. There's lots of people that are saying traditional lead generation techniques are dead, they call them intrusive marketing, they call it disruptive marketing, all very kind of negative, and they're saying that the only way forward is online lead generation, it's content marketing, because that's where all your leads are coming from. And I'm sure for some organisations that may be true, but for an awful lot of organisations, yes, content marketing is very important, inbound marketing is very important, but it doesn't replace some of the traditional ones. To me, and it's what I'll be talking about now, it's all about that integrated approach to your lead generation. And that's where you get maximum benefit, not only from your traditional, but also from all your inbound, and all your social media marketing. And this was a discussion that was had many years ago when email marketing came about. I'm sure most people can't remember days before email marketing. But as soon as email marketing became big in marketing terms, it was a case of that was it. Telemarketing was going to be dead, direct mail was going to be dead, and it was going to replace lots of other forms of marketing. And yes, direct mail certainly took a drop off, but now is increasing again, because you'll find that your prospects aren't receiving very many direct mail messages. So we're doing a lot more direct mail with our clients. We use direct mail ourselves. So to me, it's not about the new kicking out the old, it's about the new supplementing lead generation. It's about integrating them together. It's about understanding your market and how they respond to the different methods of engagement. Online is slightly different, I think. I think online is crucial to absolutely every business. The website that you have is absolutely vital, so it doesn't matter if you're sending out emails, you're driving people through to your website. We have it with our callers, they're often on the phone to people, and whilst they're on the phone, the prospects are actually looking at our client's website. So it can be used in that way, and you can talk people through what it is that you're selling, utilising the website. It's also, if you're writing blogs, they're normally going to be on your website. If you're doing tweets or if you're posting on LinkedIn, again, all of it is driving people back to your website. So I think your website, no matter what else you use in lead generation and marketing, your website is absolutely key. And it's also key that you capture visitors on that, whether that's through forums that you've got where people download content, whether it's through getting people to subscribe to newsletters, whether it's through looking at Google Analytics, which I will talk about later, or whether it's through some of the paid services where they can tell you who's actually visited your website. Something else I'll show you is utilising chat, which is something we're just beginning to use at the moment. So online is key. Content is something that a lot of people kind of struggle with. It's writing the content is great, but then how do we actually get that read? And there was a statistic I read the other day that was something scary, like 65% of all content is never read. Now somebody's planned that content, somebody's actually written that content, but then it's not being read. So what's the point in going through all that effort if you're not actually using it to engage with your target market? So again, I want to show some examples of companies that I think are doing the online side very, very well. And then finally we'll come into where traditional sits within that. So what I'll do at this point is I'll just share my desktop with everybody. And then I can just take a second before you can see that. So, is that come through? Can everybody see where I am at the moment? Okay. So what I want to talk about is, once you've got some content and you've created it, and we're going to talk about kind of content marketing, we're going to talk about social media and online side, kind of how they all come together. And certainly for B2B lead generation, one of the social media sites, and probably one of the best for posting content, is LinkedIn. And this is what lots of organisations are using. However, I've not come across many organisations that are using it that successfully and actually driving new business sales leads from it. Some of them are beginning to, but I think it's like a lot of social media. It's like, how much effort do we put into it? We've got a certain amount of resource, we've got a certain amount of budget, so how much do we put into it? So what I thought I'd use, as I said earlier, is an example of a company that I think does the whole online inbound very, very well. They also do the outbound well. They were a customer of ours for some time, is Salesforce. So this is the Salesforce LinkedIn webpage. Because they do it very well, we can see on the right-hand side that they've actually got 215,000 followers of their LinkedIn page. So every time they publish something, 215,000 people will be following them. The only way that you can get that is by producing content that your market wants. And I think that's one of the key things with Salesforce. If we scroll down and have a look, a lot of the content isn't actually about Salesforce. We've got one there on Salesforce Essentials, they've got an event. But then beneath that, we've got Secrets to Business Growth. So this is a book that they've published. So it's not about CRM systems, it's not about software at all. It's all about how you can grow your business. So 3 tips from entrepreneurs, because they understand their market and they know that that's what their market will be looking for. So straight away, they're not giving a huge amount away, but what they're trying to do is get you to fill in the form and then you get the free ebook. So again, somebody reads it on social media, straight away they fill in their details, and then Salesforce start marketing to them in more traditional ways. But also within LinkedIn, they've got all of their blog posts are on there. So now we've got 7 steps to successful social selling on Twitter. So what this isn't an ebook. Now this is taking people to the blog. So they've given free content away. So you can go down and you can read everything that's on this page. Excuse my internet, we seem to have slowed down slightly. So you can read everything that's on here. You don't need to give any details. So you don't need to give your company name or your name, your phone number, etc. But what they do have again, to the right-hand side, straight away, we've got 8 ways to unlock Salesforce with Pardo. So we can get the white paper, but we need to register our details to get the white paper. We've also got, we can follow them on Twitter. Just above it, we can get the blog newsletter, so we can get lots of blogs like this. Further down, it's time to start crushing your quota. I'm assuming that means hitting targets again. A way that they can capture your details, because you need to register your details to actually get that white paper. And then down at the bottom, we've got a slide share presentation with more information on 14 ways to build meaningful relationships using Twitter. And we've got a link to their Facebook page. We can like them on Facebook, etc. Which again, they've got 320,000 likes on Facebook, which for a B2B organisation is phenomenal. It's all because the content they're giving away is aimed not just at their prospect buying their own software, but about the information that's key for their target market, what's going to be interesting to their target market. I will say with Salesforce, they also have something like 13,000 employees. They will have a marketing budget which will run into the millions, and they'll have a team of dozens of people creating this content on a daily basis. But to me, it's not about just creating vast amounts of it. It's when you do create content that it's about making that content relevant. We've done all the work at the beginning to understand our market, so we understand what it is that they're going to be looking for. It's then creating content that is right for that target market. It's publishing it in a way that people will see, so whether it's through LinkedIn, whether it's through Twitter, which we'll have a look at in a minute. And it's about trying to capture other information as well. So now we've got our inbound marketing generating names and contact details and phone numbers for us, which can then be passed on to the telemarketing team if that's what you've decided at the early stages of your lead generation planning, or it can be kept within the marketing team. You might not want to contact people depending on what they've looked at. You might want to wait until they've engaged with you a second time before you actually give them a ring. But these are all things that you can decide. And as long as you've got your content working for you, then you'll start getting returns on that. So that was within LinkedIn. Again, they've got advertising within LinkedIn now, but this session today isn't talking about pay-per-click advertising either on Google or on LinkedIn. It's all about how we can start ourselves engaging with that market. So something else that Salesforce do very well is utilising Twitter. So now you should be able to see their Twitter profile. Again, I think this is one of the best B2B ones that I've come across, and they've got 158,000 people that are following them on Twitter. So every time they put something out into the market, they know it may be visible to all of those people. It's certainly visible to a lot of them, depending on when they actually are online. And again, the content is exactly the same. Some of it is around Salesforce and about CRM systems and selling CRM systems, but then an awful lot of it is around their target market and what they might be interested in. And I thought that was quite an interesting one that came out. Customers typically complete 70% of their research by the time they contact a customer, by the time they contact a company. So again, this is very different from the days when I first started with lead generation, where you were speaking to people who often didn't know about your products and services, the benefits they could get. So part of the sales process was about educating them. A lot of that's done now, and a lot of the time your prospects and your target market will be researching online. Part of that is great because it makes life for the salespeople a lot easier. On the downside, it means that, well, what if whilst doing that research, they go onto your website, they read something that you've created, but they don't actually engage with you, they don't phone you up, or they don't give you their phone number so that you can then progress them or you can manage them as a lead. So there are negatives to this. So it's how do we make sure that just because we've got 150,000 followers, we're actually using that to sell. Because it's those numbers, whether it's Twitter or whether it's Facebook, if they're not your core target market, then again, everything that you're doing can be a complete waste of time and a complete waste of money, which I'll come to shortly on some of the things that we can do to progress that. So again, I think the information, the content that you're creating, Twitter is a fantastic way of you publishing that. But Twitter, again, can take an awful lot of time and an awful lot of effort to start building up meaningful followers. And as an organisation, we've been using it for the last year or so, and we're only up to 200 or so followers on Twitter. But the other thing that we do with Twitter, we use TweetDeck. So I don't know if this is something that anybody's come across. It's now been bought by Twitter. So it's very rare I go onto it, Twitter. Whereas if I am posting tweets, everything can be done through TweetDeck. But TweetDeck is also a great way of monitoring what your market's saying, what they're talking about, and also for lead generation. So on the left-hand panel that you can see, I've got everybody that ever mentions us and does tweets or follows us, etc. The far right-hand panel is just my home. So these are the people that have that I'm following. So it's looking at the tweets that are coming back from them. But the other thing that you can do within TweetDeck, you can start searching Twitter. So there's a few that I've set up. So this one I've got Anybody that retweets about recommend marketing, then I get notified on this as soon as somebody posts that tweet. A lot of those are dross that you just kind of have to go through that aren't relevant. But in the last 12 months, we've probably had 5 customers, including one of our biggest, a client that's over in the States, who have come on board as a direct result of this. So here we've got, so the second one down, 16 minutes ago, can anybody recommend a marketing recruitment agency within the Milton Keynes area? Yep, that's not relevant to us, but we've had them, can anybody recommend a lead generation company? Can anybody recommend a telemarketing company? Can anybody recommend a marketing agency? So there's a number of them that we monitor. To the right, we've got, can anybody recommend a telemarketing company? So there is an accounting firm who are, I think they're in Milton Keynes, and they were looking for a telemarketing organisation. All we do is send a tweet to them saying, this isn't a recommendation, but this is exactly what we do. Can we give you a call? I've set up a few others just for the purposes of this webinar today. Recommend CRM. So there's a number of people, so there's a charity, a not-for-profit, that's looking for a good CRM system. There's lots of people, so a good training website or training software. So there's lots of people using Twitter, using social media to actually search for your products and services. If you're selling something specific like ERP software, it might not be that often that they come up, or if you're targeting the health service, when we've done that for clients, we don't find that many of that market actually using it, because again, a lot of the health services have actually blocked access to Twitter and blocked access to other social media sites. Excuse me. So again, it goes back to one of the first things we talked about, which is understanding your target market. How are they going to engage? And then looking at the tools that are available. The great thing about TweetTech, it's free of charge, and just to monitor it, you set it up, and then you go on there a couple of times a day, or you can get notified if you've got very specific search terms in there when somebody has posted that. So it's a great way of getting good quality leads coming out very, very quickly. And then it's all about how you go on and how you engage and how you manage them. The last thing I want to talk about just on kind of the online and the content side is chat. Something that we just started over the last couple of weeks, really trying to use chat. So we've got chat engaged on our website, and we're not doing any triggers at the moment. It's all about to see kind of what quality we're getting, because we're getting a few people going to our website, more that now that we're doing more marketing towards it. So it's how do we make sure that we're actually capturing those visitors, as opposed to somebody coming along, reading our blog or looking around thinking, no, this isn't for us, it's not giving us the information, and then leaving. We're looking at ways of how, again, we can use other techniques to make sure our content is driving leads for us. So we've only had 2 chats in the last 2 weeks, but from that we can go through and look at the kind of history. So we had somebody contact us the other day looking for a brochure. They've said they don't want a call at the moment, but they want a brochure, and then we've mailed that to them, and then they're in the diary for a call over the next week, 10 days, depending on if they come back to us. So again, we've got all of the information there. We've got another one, they're looking to target a lead generation campaign into training managers. So again, we had a good conversation with them, sent them an email, and then they're in the diary for a call back early part of next week, which is what they've asked for. So again, these are people that have gone through to our website. They'd come through either on the back of a tweet that we'd done, or through search engine optimization, or just through Google search. They'd come through, and it's about how we can engage with them on the site, and chat is something that we're beginning to do, and what we're going to do. Again, Zopin is completely free of charge, just to see how it's going. You can move to the next level up, which I think is about $20 per month. And then you can start putting triggers on. So if somebody looks at 3 different pages, you can just do a small pop-up to say, hi, is there anything that I can help you with? Again, for the money, I think it's great value. As long as it's working for your target market, and over time, you can see how good that is. Some markets don't like it, and it might be too intrusive for some people, or certainly the triggers may be too intrusive, but it's something that you could use. And again, it's putting those leads back into your CRM system, doing that initial engagement, so then it comes down to the other people in the organisation to provide the management. The last thing I want to look at in terms of software that's available, again, another thing that's completely free of charge, Google Analytics. Now I'm sure this is something that most people are using, or a lot of companies will have. But one of the areas that we're looking at, and yet it gives great information about where companies come from and the search terms that they've used. But in terms of the lead generation, there's one area of it which is within audience, within technology, and then within network. And what this does is actually gives you, where possible, the domain of the companies that have visited your website. So on the left hand side we've got the companies. A lot of them are always going to be either the ISP or the domain controller, the domain manager, depending on where that website's at. But we can see that we've got unions where software have been on, and they've been on our website 3 times, and I think they're on the webinar with us today. We've also had shot down them, Parkham Park, Beam Telecom. So again, it gives us a number of organisations. So we've got Deltec Systems UK. So all we do this for ourselves as well as for our clients at the moment. So we go through, we look at Deltec, okay, we can see Deltec, they're an ERP organisation, again they're registered to attend this webinar, so then they go on to our marketing database. What we then do with it is down to what you've agreed at the beginning. For a number of our clients, they said, yeah, if they've gone onto the website, we pass that team to our telemarketeers. We don't know the individuals that it is that are visited, but we know the types of people. So it might be somebody in sales, it might be somebody in marketing. So at least it gives our telemarketing team a number of opportunities to go and try and investigate, knowing that that organisation has visited our website. And we do that, and there might only be 10 to 15 organisations that we get on a weekly basis who we can identify. But that's another 10 to 15 organisations that you can then pass through to your telemarketing team, or it could be that you're sending out emails once you found the contacts within them, and you then start communicating with these people to try and make sure that out of the 70% or out of the organisations that do 70% of the research before approaching companies, you're likely to be one of the companies that they talk to, because not only have they kind of possibly engaged with you, you're going out and you're talking to them. So I think Google Analytics is a great tool to use for feeding the kind of the funnel at the very low end. You'd never call them a sales lead, but it might be a lead that's managed by marketing that you can then, you've had engaged with, and you can then go on to the management side. Has anybody got any questions on those areas or anything else to look at from what we've seen so far? Yep. 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 Okay. The question that anybody didn't hear, is this a free service, the Google Analytics? Absolutely. You get Google Analytics, you just create a Google Analytics account. It then gives you some code that you need to paste into the footer of your website. So whoever controls your website, you can give them the code. But absolutely, you can find out where people have come from, how many pages they've visited, how long they've spent on the site, and then also the domain of the companies that have visited your website. There are a number of services as well that instead of you having to go through and do searches on these, they will provide that for you, so you can pay a monthly subscription for them, and they tell you what the company is and the address and phone number, etc. So it cuts out some of the research. Again, it comes down to budgets. Okay, right. No problem. Okay, so if we go back to, I've got some tabs open, I'll try and find There we are. So if we go back to the webinar, just find it. Okay, here we go. Is everybody back? Can we all see that now? Okay, so that was just a run through of what I think some of the key areas around kind of content management and around the whole inbound and online is. We've not covered search engine optimization, we covered blogs kind of on a sideline. There are lots more webinars that we'll be doing over the coming months which will cover a lot of that in more detail, but for this one it's all about kind of how we bring it together. And that's what I think key, and it's how the new ways of engaging with your target market can fit into the traditional lead generation, not only for engagement but then also in management. And a number of our clients just use us for telemarketing and email and traditional services. And there was one that we did very recently which was targeting hospitals and the NHS. And it was all about some funding that the government had provided that was running out. The first round of funding had to be in by the 26th of January. And so our client were a little slow on the uptake. So they just wanted to contact as many people as they could from January the 6th, I think it was. So all they wanted was just a pure cold calling campaign. Now if you look around in the market at the moment, or if you look around online at what marketing companies are saying, then everybody's telling you that cold calling is dead, telemarketing is dead. And again, it's only if it's done badly that it's dead. And for our client, into a market that they knew social media wouldn't be as successful or take a bit longer to get successful, it was purely down to email and telemarketing. And on the back of the campaign, we got something like 7 appointments to see either IT directors or heads of nursing within NHS trusts and within NHS hospitals. So it kind of went live on the 6th and it finished on, I think it was 10, 11 days later, working day 20th of January. And out of that, there was a pipeline and they've already closed a number of customers from it. So yes, there are lots of new ways of generating engagement. A lot of them can take some time if you're just reliant purely on somebody downloading a white paper or looking at your blog and then hopefully coming to you. Traditional does still work very, very well depending on the market and depending on how you're doing it. But it's when you integrate them that you get maximum benefit. And we showed a few examples of how to use Twitter and integrate that with telemarketing. So following up anybody that's searching using TweetDeck, it could be that the phone call is put straight into those people. For me, I always put a tweet in first to say, I'll be giving you a call. And nobody's ever objected to that. Exactly the same as Google Analytics. You're creating a list of a target that will be warmer than cold calling, where you know there might be a degree of interest there. And one of the things we talked about earlier was about kind of what is a lead, what is a qualified lead, what information do you need to find. And telemarketing is still one of the best ways of finding that information and moving what might be just somebody that's read a document or they've just visited your website, and actually moving it through to a sales-ready presentation, to a sales-ready prospect. Because we've found out what systems they're currently using, we've found out how long they've had them, we've found out that they've got authority, that they've got a budget in place. All of that can be found out through utilising telemarketing. So I certainly wouldn't listen to people that say that telemarketing is dead. It's changed, the role's changed, and it's when it's integrated into a lot of the other lead generation, certainly the online side, that telemarketing is really bringing benefits to our clients and to lots of other people, whether that's using it in-house or you're using it through third-party agencies. We're also doing a lot more direct mail. We're sending out postcards, we're sending out letters, and as I said earlier, a lot of markets, certainly on the IT side, people have stopped communicating to them through direct mail. So we're utilising that, we're utilising email, and we're utilising phone calls. So it might be on a Tuesday, we send out a letter first class, on a Wednesday we send out an email to people, and on a Thursday we send out a telephone call, we put in a telephone call. So again, it's getting over some of the hurdles that, unless you're a sales force and people have heard of you, it might be difficult to get people to answer the phone or to get people to engage with you. But if you're sending out good quality information that's of benefit to your target market, then you can find those leads through using traditional methods. Okay. So, any questions on engagement? I'm aware that we are moving through it relatively quickly. We're coming to an end shortly. We've not got a huge amount more. But has anybody got any questions so far on anything we've gone through? Okay, hi. Hi, Laura. Yeah. TweetDeck, you can either download it, and so for anybody that didn't hear that, just ask about TweetDeck and how we can utilise it. TweetDeck, again, completely free of charge. You can either, you go to the TweetDeck website and you can either download it or you can just use the online version. As long as you've got a Twitter account, then that's all you need. And then once you're on, you can just set up any of those, the tabs. So very, very simple. Take 5 minutes to set up. No problem. Again, it comes back to when we talked about the keyword, unified keyword strategy. Again, those keywords might be what you use to search to see whether your target market is looking, and if they are looking, what are they saying? What are your competitors saying? It doesn't just need to be recommend me software or recommend me marketing services to us. It's also what's everybody else saying about lead generation, what are they saying about telemarketing, about online marketing. So it's a great way of understanding what's going on within your target market. Okay. Okay, any other questions or people okay? Okay, so we've done, we've covered kind of engagement. So then management, and again a lot of this we've kind of covered in what we've talked about, what I talked about previously. It's how do we go from that initial engagement through to the progression and get them ready to go over to a salesman at whatever point you've agreed with the sales team that that's going to happen. So this is everything from kind of looking at the software you're going to use. Is it going to be a traditional CRM system? Are you going to use an online CRM system? Are you going to use something integrated into the CRM system along the lines of Marketo or HubSpot? Both of which are fantastic systems for managing every communication you have with your prospect market, whether that's through online, whether it's through your website, whether it's through people filling in a form on your landing page. It's integrating to your CRM system, so it's every phone call that you have with them. So it's a very, very comprehensive system, but with that it carries quite hefty costs running into a few £1,000s per year, which for a lot of organisations is fine. For other organisations it's okay, how do we do it without going to that expenditure? So it's making sure that the CRM system that you use, all of the information is recorded. It's every conversation that you have with them. It's every time they respond to communication. It's when they do go on and look at your website, if you are looking at those domain names, making sure that whoever's doing the follow-up call is populating your CRM system as well. Because that also starts giving you a lot of knowledge, especially once you've spoken to these people. If somebody's just downloaded a white paper, in our case it might be on utilising social media for lead generation. Is that the only area that they're interested in, or are they looking at lead generation in total? So the next white paper that we publish, it might be an introduction to lead generation. And then if we've got the same person that's downloading it, we're beginning to get more knowledge on what it is that interests them. So when we do speak to them, we've got more ways that we can actually open up that conversation. Also, once we know that somebody has read a number of our pieces of content, it also means that they're kind of buying into us, they're trusting us and who we are as an organisation, or hopefully that's the case. So again, when it comes to speaking to them on the telephone, you might be able to kind of build rapport with them more quickly, you might be able to start a dialogue and really understand where they are in the buying cycle. So it's having that level of information is absolutely key, and recording it so everybody else can utilise that. So if it is marketing that's controlling all the online side, it's then sharing that information with telemarketing, or if it's going direct to sales once it meets a certain stage, all of that history is able to be shared with them. So to set up those processes can take some time and some effort, but the rewards that you get are huge from that. So the management is key, and there's lots of times that I've gone onto websites and certainly filling in forms or requesting information that then sits there and nobody does anything with. And so if you do have people that are completing a form, certainly if they are asking for information and that's not happening, which it's still meant to be something like 35% of requests for information on the business-to-business side aren't getting fulfilled, means that 35% of everybody that you've kind of engaged with on such a good way they've come to you is being ignored. So all the hard work's being done, but then the actual management of those prospects isn't happening. So again, it's defining when you start lead generation, who's got responsibility for that? Is the responsibility of sending out information or doing follow-ups that with marketing? Is it that with telemarketing? Is it with a third-party agency? Or is it with a salesman? And then it's also ensuring that we can trace back, if they are a customer, okay, where have they come from? They've been onto a webinar, they've downloaded 3 white papers, and we've had 7 telemarketing calls with them. So it really starts giving you knowledge on your lead generation process and what works. Because the one thing that's great about lead generation is it's so visible. Everything that you do, virtually every pound that you spend, you can track back and trace back to customers. So if you're finding that telemarketing is working well, how much is it actually generating? That every pound that you're spending, you're getting £10 back. Fantastic, it's a no-brainer, we'll continue with it. Exactly the same with publishing white papers. How many of your customers are actually reading them when they're a prospect? Again, it's that knowledge means you can refine your lead generation process. And certainly if you might be tight in terms of budget or in terms of resource, you can then get rid of the methods that aren't as effective or aren't paying for themselves. But it's all about managing that prospect, managing the knowledge and sharing the knowledge with everybody with an interest in it. Okay, we've just got the last slide or so now. So any other questions? Are we all okay with kind of where we are at the moment? Yeah. So the last thing I want to talk about before we do a quick wrap up is just kind of legal and best practice. This is for online as well as the more traditional side. Rightly so, there's a number of laws and there's a fair amount of legislation that controls us as marketeers, as salespeople, and as lead generators. And in the UK, certainly when it comes to things like the Data Protection Act and the Electronic Communications Act, I'm sure most people are aware, but we operate a very different policy depending on whether we're communicating with an organisation or we're communicating with a private individual. A private individual is also a sole trader, a partnership, and in Scotland it's a legal limited LLP, a limited partnership. So that means you're not allowed to communicate to those people, whether that's through email, certainly through email, and also the information that you're holding on them is classed as personal information. Even though it's a sole trader, even though it's a partnership, it's still classed as a consumer because it's not a separate legal entity. So if you are targeting small companies, especially if you might be an IT support or if you're targeting small organisations, be very aware that there is more legislation that you need to conform to. If you are targeting limited companies, if you're targeting PLCs, if you're targeting charities, NGOs or governmental organisations as well, we operate on an opt-out policy, which means legally we can email people without their permission. I'm not talking about best practice at the moment, I'm purely talking about the legal side. So we can email them without their permission. We have to give them an opportunity to opt out, and we have to act on that opt-out within 28 days. The data that we hold is all classed as business data, so again, it's not governed by the same data protection principles, and it's not as strict as it is if you're holding data on consumers. The other parts of the Act, or the other parts of legislation that you need to be aware of, TPS, Telephone Preference Service, the Corporate Telephone Preference Service, the Email Preference Service and the Mailing Preference Service. All of these are opt-out, so people can go on, they can register not to receive telephone calls, the companies can register not to receive telemarketing calls as well. And again, if you're found if you go against that, you can be prosecuted. There aren't many prosecutions, but again, it's pure best practice. We're trying to engage with the target market, we're trying to get them on side, we're trying to get them to trust us, so we need to respect their wishes depending on the different ways that they need to be communicated to. There's also the Online Advertising Act that marketeers need to be aware of, and this is just saying it was brought in beginning of last year, I think, or beginning of this year, and all it was saying that the Advertising Standards Authority will judge all of your online material in the same way that they would if it was a TV advert. So if you're making bold claims on your website, again, you can be prosecuted for that and you can be prevented from using that again. There was a new piece of law, there was a new recommendation that was brought out within the last 6 weeks that we sent out of one of our newsletters that was about social media, and it was about what happens because previously companies were liable for what their followers or their likes said on their social media page. So if somebody went onto your Facebook page and they posted something which was defamatory, it would be the company that could be found liable for that if they don't act on it quickly. There was some clarification that came out, and again, I'm not a lawyer, so I always recommend people look into it, that said it's only if you're asking for comments, which a lot of social media do, what do you think about this, tell us what you think about that, and you've actually asked people to comment on your Facebook page or comment on your LinkedIn page, that you can then be prosecuted. But again, if you are using social media and you are asking people to comment, it does need policing quite stringently to make sure you're not going to fall foul of any law. Any questions on that? Because that was the kind of the legal side. The best practice side is obviously going to be different. For email, we'd always recommend trying to use lists that you've built yourselves. So whether it's through phoning people up and asking, or your telemarketing team asking, is it okay if we send out an email, as opposed to bought-in lists. For a lot of organisations, it's not realistic to only go to a self-produced list, and that they do need to rent in data. And then it's just making sure that the data that you're sending out is relevant to the individual that you're sending it to, and of interest really. If you're getting lots of unsubscribes, it either means your data is not very good, or the information that you're sending isn't relevant and isn't of interest to the people you're communicating to. So making sure that you're communicating effectively, you're communicating in a way that your market wants, helps no end with your lead generation, because it means that your market is happy to receive information from you. Likewise, the amount of time or the frequency that you communicate to people. Are people in your market happy to receive emails from you once a month? If you go up to once every 3 weeks for an email communication and your unsubscribes go up, then it's a case of, okay, we're communicating to them very often. So it's making sure that you're aware of your market and you're thinking of them, both in terms of the frequency of communication and vitally in terms of the quality of information that you communicate to them with. We talked earlier about 2/3 of all content isn't being read. That's either because the content isn't very good to begin with, or the ways of communicating aren't very effective. So if you're communicating good information, you're communicating well, you'll find that your lead generation improves drastically. Okay. So that covers pretty much everything. I was just going to do a very quick 30-second kind of summary of what we talked about. To me, it comes down to really knowing your target market, understanding who they are, understanding where you fit in, understanding why your prospect may want to buy from you, or at least they may want to engage with you. It's then utilising lots of different ways of engaging them, whether that's through email, whether it's through social media, whether it's through writing blogs and publishing blogs, whether it's through telemarketing. That engagement is absolutely critical, but then it's also the management of that. So it's then finding out, and the best way of doing it is through telemarketing, where are they in terms of their project, who else are they looking at. It might be not coming up for 2 years. Absolutely great, as long as we know about it, then we can get back in touch with them through the telephone again in a year's time, find out where it's gone. So it's the management of your target market once you've had engagement from those people that is absolutely key. Sharing that knowledge with everybody that's involved in the lead generation process, understanding the qualification criteria prior to beginning any lead generation, and then making sure that you're recording it and making sure that you've got visibility of how effective all of your different lead generation methods are. And if you do that, hopefully you'll have this year to be one of the best years you've had for lead generation. And that covers everything. There we go. 3:32, bang on an hour. So hopefully people have enjoyed that and it's been useful. I have recorded this webinar, so we will be publishing it online. And if anybody's got any questions, please get in touch. Everybody will be getting a call from us over the coming time, just to kind of understand any other information, or if people do have projects on. I know that most people aren't looking for a lead generation partner, but again, part of what we do is speak to everybody that's come on to understand where they are and if there is any way that we can work together. So if people do have questions, very happy for people to contact me afterwards. Okay, thank you. Cheers. Bye. Bye. Bye.